All right, I want to do a little video on some prints, and I wanted to show you some where you've been able to see the big works. So this is the print of the Crossroads piece. So some of you have watched the Crossroads video and you can see the relationship of the print to the piece. And what this is a high quality printed image, and then it's been decoupaged onto the front of this board, and then there's some nice little eye hooks. And this board is just a stained board. I stained it before I varnished it, decoupaged it on, glazed it. There's an extra eye hook, and what that does is it gives you that invisible edge because it's held up by the 3 points. All of these have a certain amount of damage because they've been in storage, and this version just did not take to storage. This is another one. This is my small piece of the Travelers. It's actually one of the prints that has survived storage for a year. But anyway, the majority of them ended up with this problem where it touched another piece and then tore, like you can see these two are from right here. So you get what happened. All right, but why am I talking about the prints? Well, I'm talking about the prints because the original to this, is a 5 foot by 5 foot on paper. And so this is Dining with Icarus. And there is currently an undamaged version of Dining with Icarus at Stone Soup. And I am really happy with Dining with Icarus as a concept, though I don't know if this is the perfect rendition. So the idea is anytime you build something, you're taking on something rather divine. And so I really liked this idea of placing these everyday people who work with their hands and take on to build our world as almost like these, I don't want to say gods because that's a misnomer, but as saints over us, because I think the people who put down our streets and keep up our lights, well, if they're doing it really well, they're a type of saint, and we should honor them. And so that's my idea behind Dining with Icarus. Also, anytime that you do it, you risk yourself, you know? So that's Dining with Icarus. And I can make an undamaged version of this, obviously. And I don't think I'll be doing this type of print, but there's lots of options. I have the original images, and there's some of the photos that were done by Matt Stone. They're very nice quality. All right. This one is a personal favorite, and it's one of the most direct self-portraits I've ever done. And this one is called Self-Narration. And I was really intrigued by the imagery in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and all these calculations of everything around you. And that really speaks to me because my time when I was in the service, I was an imagery analyst. So it just relates to this relationship of like viewing the world mathematically and the size and the scale of things and what things are. And so I decided to use some of my consistent motifs like the sun and like the person walking away, and then just add in these mental note details. And so I actually looked up the heat of the sun in kelvins and then added in my height. And then I like the idea of the footprints, and maybe you're seeing like a solar radiation thing. And then also I just was having a love affair with my truck for a while, and that maybe has passed now, but God, it was a beautiful truck. And so these words are words that I thought of, and they're not at a particular moment, but somewhere in the space between a series of moments, she started to intentionally narrate her own life. And as I've continued learning about psychology and stuff, I think this might be what Jung calls individuation. And I wouldn't say that I'm there by any means, but that was the course that I begun to try and figure out before I knew what that was. But now, out of these is, I wish it wasn't as damaged as it is, but one of my kind of important pieces. This is my portrait of Peterson. And unfortunately, the damage is right on the main version. The original to this piece is I think it's about 6 by 13 inches paper. And it is mostly charcoal and like white and black charcoal with a little bit of red paint. But this was a still life that I designed, and I really liked this idea of having this like cultural moment and this surrealism and this moving of the red pill. And I did truth 2 to 4 minutes because that's kind of how people are taking things in on YouTube. And this screen capture of him was specifically from the biblical lectures. And if you remember the biblical lectures that Peterson did, he don't think that they're just about the Bible. They're about the cultural context of how we got to where we are. And then also he was wearing a black suit and the background was black, and he was so deep in purpose and resolve in those lectures. It's like any person at their peak, there's a certain radiance to them. And he would have these long periods where he wouldn't look at the audience and he'd be looking at the ground or he'd be looking at the distance, and he always talks with his hands. And so if you are a hopeless fan child of Peterson, that you would probably relate to this. And so this was the earbuds and the phone and this very private experience with this new information that once it's seen, it couldn't be unseen. And so I wanted to kind of explain that piece in more detail, but I'll show you my papers. It's somewhere in there. And I don't want to get in there right now. I assure you it's safe though. So, anyway. So, yeah, that is this little bit of info on some of my print series, some of my work that I don't have out regularly. All right.